This first recipe was made by Chrissy with Bon Appetit. As part of the meatball recipe, I had to make a quick vegan parm cheese, which was actually super simple to make. Soaking the bread in the plant milk seemed super odd to me, but it turned out that it was a crucial step and it worked out pretty well in the recipe. I will say that I kept the crust on mine where Chrissy removed it from the original recipe, but I find that doesn't make a whole lot of difference as I tried both ways, but adding the crust to me, it just brought out a little bit more texture in the final product. So finally, having everything prepared, it's bringing the whole mixture together, forming them into the meatballs. Give them a quick sear to add a little bit of texture, crispiness, and color to the outside of the meatballs. And then from there, you just bake them off. To me, these were not quite like meatballs. They were more like falafel. Now the flavor, the texture, everything was great with them. It's just like I said, I wouldn't use them as a complete replacement in a meatball recipe because they're more like the falafel. But it is an absolutely fantastic recipe and it's great flavor, and I would definitely make this again, just for something that I'm going to use more so for a falafel recipe. So these next meatballs that I will be making are coming from a recipe by Gaz Oakley. This recipe is super simple, minimal knife usage, and basically you'd start off with just giving a quick blitz to the vegetables. The next part of this recipe is pretty ongoing over the stovetop, because basically what you're doing is you're adding all of those blitzed vegetables to the saute pan, sauteing them up. You're adding in the rest of the flavors as far as the herbs and the spices and the salt and the pepper, really bringing them together, cooking that off, and then you're going to deglaze it with the red wine and the vegetable stock. When that mixture is fully done, we're going to combine it with the Vital Wheat gluten. That's going to help give it some of that texture and kind of that fiber. It's going to create kind of the fibers that you need in order to hold the meatballs together. You're going to shape them into the meatballs and then add them to a skillet to caramelize them up a little bit. After the caramelization, you're going to roast them in the oven with the roasting mixture. I like the flavors that were composed in the meatballs, and I could definitely get the meatiness that you get from the title of Gaz's video, the Meatiest Meatballs, because the mushroom and the red wine, the herbs, they really come through and they do add that meatiness to the recipe. Now, to me personally, I wasn't a huge fan on the texture, only because of the vital wheat gluten. To me, vital wheat gluten is very tricky, where if you add too much, there's a lot of almost mushiness in the fibers in it, whereas if you use a little bit less, you can kind of hide almost an aspect that there's the vital wheat gluten that's being used. And so that's really the only thing that I would change in this recipe, is maybe using a little bit less of vital wheat gluten. It also makes it a little bit easier to kind of form the meatballs, but otherwise I think that this recipe was great, and I can definitely see why that it would be called the Meatiest Meatballs.